This was the sole survivor of Leonidas' 300 Spartans, the sole survivor of one of the most famous battles in history. You would be surprised who it was. Imagine being the sole survivor of one of the greatest battles in history, an event that shaped the fate of the ancient world like few others, and instead of being treated with awe and respect, being considered the most cowardly man to ever walk this earth. In the land that Leonidas defended with his 300 Spartans, in that magnificent expression of sacrifice and devotion, from which Aristodemus and the Lacedaemonian was missing in its last stand. As a result, he was ridiculed by his contemporaries, who judged him based on the moral thoughts of his time. A few words about the epic. Logically, there will be few who do not know more or less what happened at the hot gates, Thermopylae. It's called that because actually there's magma underneath, and even in the winter when you pass by the frozen ground, there's steam coming up because of the magma underneath. There's a lot of hot spring baths in that area as well. In a different and numerous version of the battle of David and Goliath, the two great powers of the ancient world came to face to face, Greece and Persia. No matter how much modern historians dispute many of the elements cited by Herodotus, the essence is one that does not change. A handful of warriors, 300, 1,000 if we add the Thespians, or 5,000 to 6,000 according to other estimates, stood against many times more of their opponents. The final outcome, namely the fact that the Persians passed through the strait, does not cause surprise or admiration. On the contrary, the subject of eternal study will remain how so few not only did not cower in the face of more terrifying enemies, but were able to actually stop them, defeating them first in the mind and then on the battlefield itself. The three with different stories at Thermopylae. From the epic conflict at Thermopylae, the hot gates, there are usually two names of Greeks that have remained in history. Certainly that of King Leonidas, the king of Sparta, but also that of Ephialtes. Ephialtes in Greek means bad dream, okay? Now, the space between the model of bravery, as the first is, Leonidas, and the synonym of betrayal, the second, Ephialtes, the bad dream, was covered by the bodies of those who fell at the gates of fire, the hot gates. Among them there were no three who could have avoided their appointment with fate and subsequent death at the hands of Xerxes, the Persian soldiers. Aristodemus, Evritus, and Panditis. However, only one, the first, made the mistake of not dying. Before the final clash, not everyone died. This was the only survivor of Leonidas' 300. When Xerxes was now convinced that the Greeks were not kidding him when they insisted on facing him, it was a given that the end of the defenders of the straits was a matter of time. Leonidas, following the oracle that said that Sparta or one of its kings should perish, stayed with those warriors who were ready to sacrifice themselves with him. Perhaps it is no coincidence that his 300 all had children, and therefore their replacement was a given. Before the fighting began, which lasted 3 days, he ordered Panditis to go to Thessaly. It's believed that he carried a message as an ambassador to ask for help, although this part of the story is disputed. In any case, Panditis returned alone to find that everything was over. His king and his companions were all dead, while the arrows, broken spears, shields, and fresh mass graves of the Persians remained the only witnesses to what had preceded. Having engraved the famous either when or when like a tattoo on his DNA, Panditis does what his own value system dictates when he returns to free due to the sacrifice at the hot gates. When he returns to free Sparta, he is accused of cowardice. He hangs himself with a piece of rope, ending his life. The eye problem? In addition to the suicide, Leonidas had given permission to two more of his men to leave. These were Aristodemus and the Lacedaemonian and Eurytus, who had eye problems, resulting in their king ordering them to turn back before the final battle. Although half-blind, Eurytus decided to disobey his orders. He leaves his homeland and returns to the Hot Gates, where he finds a death that suits his way of thinking at the side of his fellow competitors. And this decision of his is essentially the metaphorical death sentence of Aristodemus. As Herodotus estimates, if Eurytus had not left, or if Aristodemus had been the only one returning to Sparta, his fellow citizens might have forgiven him. After all, he had already lost one of his eyes to the infection. In the world of the ancient Lacedaemonians, the Spartans, however, there was no room for this type of understanding. The end? Not everyone died. He was the only survivor of Leonidas's 300. After the battle and the news of that the 300 lay dead, Aristodemus was called the coward, that is, a coward, the one who flees before the enemy. A word that for Sparta was the worst insult for anyone. The one who was characterized like this was not punished. He ceased to exist. He became invisible and untouchable, non-existent. He was not destined to take part in the gymnasiums or to marry. He had no right to claim any office, and he was obliged to step aside when a Spartan passed him. For societies like that, on the outskirts of Taygetus, the mountain of Sparta, death might have been preferable. This glorious death was sought by Aristodemus at the next opportunity that presented itself to him. It was the Battle of Plataea, a year after Thermopylae, and there he would fight fiercely, wanting to remove the shame from himself and clear his name. Indeed, his boldness and bravery did not go unnoticed. Unfortunately for him, however, the military leaders also discerned a recklessness completely incompatible and foreign to the concept of discipline that was the basic ingredient of the successes of the Spartan phalanx. Any move that deviated from the plan endangered the lives of the others, which once again put Aristodemus in the difficult position of having to apologize for his attitude. This time, although very seriously injured, he was accused of being crazy, a crazy man who nevertheless survived to take part in the Greco-Persian Wars until their end, paying the price of walking away from the Hot Gates, Thermopylae, rather than on his shield. There was a saying, when the Spartan soldiers left to go to battle, their mothers would say to them, either come holding your shield, carrying it, that is, as a hero, or come on it, that is, dead on your shield as a hero. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.